On July 17th, a Chinese lab announced the largest open AI model in history. And they made a promise. They would hand the whole thing to the world free for anyone on Earth to download and run. 48 hours later, that same lab did something I've genuinely never seen an AI company do. It stopped letting new customers pay. Here is their actual announcement. Kimi K3 has received far more love than we ever expected, and our GPUs are feeling it. Over the past 48 hours, demand has pushed close to the limits of our current capacity. GPUs, those are the specialized chips that AIs run on, they ran out. Now, the headlines all said China's Kimi beats Claude, and here's my favorite part. The company itself says that's not quite true. The real story isn't about a leaderboard. It's about something you cannot download for free, no matter how good your model is. Hi, I'm Corbin, and this is Corbin Uncovers AI, and this is episode 4. Quick reminder of who's talking. I've spent years in Silicon Valley as a software executive. I've worked at numerous seed-funded startups all over San Francisco, and I used to work at an office that sat right next to the Twitter building back when we called it Twitter. I also had dinner with a billionaire once upon a time, so I might know a thing or two about what I'm talking about. I remember back when I watched nearly everyone I know leave for an AI company, so I follow this race closely. And this week, the race got weird. Everybody read the same headline: China's Kimi beats Claude, and they moved on. I did the thing this channel does. I went and read the company's own blog post, start to finish. The company is a Chinese lab called Moonshot, and it turns out Moonshot is more honest about its own model than the American press was. The blog quietly admits something the headlines left out, and the real story under all of it isn't about who won, it's about who's being starved. So let's start with what they actually built, because it really is big. The lab is called Moonshot, the model is called Kimi K3, and the headline number is almost cartoonish. 2.8 trillion parameters. Parameters are, very loosely, the dials inside an AI's brain. More dials, more raw capacity. This is one of the biggest brains ever shipped. But the part that matters most is one word: open. Kimi K3 is open weight. That means Moonshot gives away the actual model file. Anyone can download it and run it on their own machines for free. Compare that to Claude or ChatGPT. Those you can only rent over the internet on the company's terms. An open model this large has never existed before. Now, small honesty flag. Moonshot promised the download for July 27th. I'll come back to whether it actually landed. Okay, beats Claude. Let's actually look at that, because this is where the story turns. The Western headlines screamed that Kimi K3 beat Claude, beat GPT, dethroned the Americans, but go read Moonshot's own blog post. In it, the company flat out admits their model still trails the two best American models. That's Claude's best model and GPT's best model. Kimi K3 beat every other model Moonshot tested it against, but the very top, they admit they're not there. Let that sink in. The Chinese lab is being more modest about its own AI than the American coverage was. The hype got ahead of the people who built the thing. So beat Claude isn't a lie exactly, it comes from one specific test. I'll show you that next. But it is not the sweeping win the headlines sold. And that gap between the headline and the blog is exactly why I read the primary source. But don't swing too far the other way. Kimi K3 won something real, and it won the fairest way there is. There's an independent leaderboard called LM Arena. It works like a blind taste test. People get shown code written by two different AIs. Nobody tells them which is which. They just pick the code they like better. On the coding version of that leaderboard, Kimi K3 came in first. People preferred its work to everyone else's, not knowing it was the underdog from China. Then there's a second independent ranking, overall intelligence, from an outfit called Artificial Analysis. On that list, Kimi K3 landed at number 3 in the world. It's the first open model ever to crack the top 3. Everything above it, you can only rent. Kimi K3 is the only one on that podium you can take home. So, not quite the sweeping win of the headlines, but not nothing. A genuine podium finish scored by outsiders. And then, 48 hours after launch, came the moment that made me stop scrolling. Moonshot turned off new paid subscriptions. They stopped taking people's money. You have to understand how strange that is. Every other AI company on Earth does the opposite. Take the customer first. Take the money first. Figure out the capacity later. Growth at all costs. Nobody closes the doors during their biggest week. Moonshot did. Their words again. Demand pushed close to the limits of our current capacity. They had a hit on their hands. People were lining up to pay, and Moonshot had to wave them off. That is not a demand problem. Every company would love that demand problem. This is a supply problem. They didn't run out of customers, they ran out of chips. And why they ran out of chips? That is the whole story. Here's the thing you can't download for free, no matter how brilliant your model is: the hardware to run it. The most advanced AI chips in the world are made using American technology, and for a few years now, America has restricted selling the best of them to China. That's the export control fight, the one you've heard about in the background of every AI news cycle. So, a lab like Moonshot runs this race with a smaller engine. That's exactly what the export controls are for. Moonshot can design a world-class model. What they can't do is get enough top chips to serve it to everyone who wants it. So that subscription shut down, that wasn't a hiccup. That was export controls becoming visible in real time in public. You could actually watch the squeeze happen. They built something great and then hit a wall. Washington built that wall, and now they're feeling the effects. So put yourself in Moonshot's shoes. You can't outserve the Americans because you can't get the chips. What do? Instead, you give the model away. Think about how clever that is. If you can't run your own AI for the world, you hand the world the model file. Then everyone else's computers run it for you. The model spreads on hardware you don't have to own. It becomes the free default that students, startups, and other countries build on. Then you get to route straight around the chip wall. That's the deeper contrast in this whole story. America's best models are rentals, closed, metered, on the company's terms. China's answer is a gift. Here's the whole thing: do what you want. Giving away your crown jewel isn't weakness here. When you're being starved of chips, it might be the smartest possible move. Now, one more thing from that blog post. It's the kind of line that gets buried under the hype, and it's the reason I read all the way to the bottom. Moonshot trained Kimi K3 to work on its own. Long, multi-step tasks with no human checking every single move. That's the hot direction for AI right now. Agents that just go do things. And right in the blog, Moonshot slips in a warning. Because the model is trained to act so independently, they say it may make unexpected decisions on the user's behalf. Their words: unexpected decisions on your behalf. If that gives you deja vu, it should. It's the same theme from our OpenAI episode. The more independent we make these systems, the more they surprise the people who built them. And here's the contrast that makes this bigger than a product launch. China's move is to give its best models away. America is going the exact opposite direction, towards locking things down. Right now, the White House is finalizing a deal. It would give the government a private window to review the most powerful AI models before they're released. The models get tested against safety benchmarks, standard tests, and those benchmarks are classified. You will never see the scores, neither will Congress. And this month, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a law in Illinois. It makes Illinois the first state in the country to demand audits. Under that law, the biggest AI companies have to open their books to independent auditors every year. So look at the two instincts side by side. China, here's the whole model, free, figure it out. America, slow down, review it in private, audit it under law. Nobody knows yet which instinct ages better, but they could not be more opposite. All right, time to put that filter on. I owe you the skeptical read. First, as I was making this, those free weights, the model file itself, weren't actually out yet. They were promised for July 27th, so largest open model ever was technically still an IOU. Second, most of the benchmark numbers Moonshot brags about are graded by Moonshot. The two I trust are outside scorers, LM Arena's blind coding test, and the intelligence ranking from artificial analysis. The rest, take them with salt. And third, the cynical read on that dramatic subscription shutdown. It's also fantastic marketing. Nothing makes a product look hotter than so many people wanted in, we had to close the doors. That pause got them headlines money can't buy. I'm not saying it was staged, I'm saying convenient. So strip out the hype, the self-graded benchmarks, the marketing. What's left? This, a free downloadable AI model, is now genuinely competitive at the very edge of the frontier. And who built it? A lab America is actively trying to starve of chips. The very chips you need to run a model this big. Sit with that because it's almost the opposite of the plan. The export controls were supposed to slow China down, and maybe they are on paper, but they may also be pushing China to give its best AI away for free. And that happens to be the single most disruptive thing you can do here, because the American AI industry is built on renting AI out. By the time you watch this, one of two things is true. Either those weights are out and everyone in the world can run a top-tier model on their own machine, or Moonshot broke its promise, and the chip squeeze is even tighter than they let on. Either way, the race just changed shape. It's not only about who builds the best model anymore, it's about who can afford to run it and who decides to just give it away. I'm Corbin, and this is Corbin Uncovers AI. If a story like this breaks, it'll show up here, and subscribing at this size genuinely helps. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great day.